See the fascinating science behind human oddities. Did you know that children tend to draw Santa Claus in much greater sizes immediately before Christmas than they do in January? It is real. People do a lot of strange things, and many studies have been done to document them. These investigations could one day make up the complete social science discipline of Quirkology. But in the interim, you can learn the fundamentals with this audiobook. Does astrology function as a tool for investing? What does a name truly mean? Do jokes always make people laugh? This book's summary is for you if you've ever thought of asking yourself such a question. Continue reading to learn more. What the way you write the letter Q implies about your ability to lie, how safe a black cat truly is, and why astrology can occasionally reveal something about a person's character. Astrology doesn't function, or at least not in the way we may think. Do you read your horoscope every day? Do the forecasts usually come true inexplicably? But, science has shown that astrology actually performs poorly in foretelling the future. The author conducted an experiment to see if astrology may aid in stock market forecasting. He asked 3 people, an astrologer, a regular investment expert, and a 4-year-old girl, to choose profitable assets. The outcomes were clear. The astrologer had the worst performance, losing 10.1% of his initial investment. The typical financial expert fared no better, losing 7.1%. However, the 4-year-old girl who made a random investment did the best, suffering a loss of only 4.6%. The child also made a profit of 5.8% when the participants were invited to make a second round of investments, while the astrologer continued to lose money at a rate of 6.2%. Alright, so astrology can't foretell the future, but it can still tell us about ourselves, right? Actually, we are unaffected by the stars. Our faith in what astrology says is what alters our actions. For instance, prominent psychologist Hans Eysenck tested over 1,000 pupils to identify extroverts and introverts. It was discovered that pupils who had an extrovert astrological sign, like Aries and Leo, performed well on the test as extroverts. Students who were born under introvert signs like Virgo and Scorpio experienced the same thing. Yet, Eysenck had a hunch that the pupils' understanding of what their sign purportedly meant had an impact on their responses. He thus conducted a second test, this time on young subjects, and the findings revealed that there was no correlation between personality and astrological sign. As we can see, astrological forecasts are frequently inaccurate, and even when they are accurate, we often unconsciously alter our actions to make them appear correct. Scientific research consistently refutes our superstitions. Without a doubt, you are aware that the number 13 is said to be unlucky. The idea that the number 13 brings bad luck has long been held, from Friday the 13th to the tragic Apollo 13 moon mission. But do these superstitions actually hold any water? Not at all, according to science. Mark Levin, a high school student from the United States, went out to find out if the fable that black cats bring bad luck had any basis in reality in order to test one notion. He used a coin toss to determine whether or not a black cat may influence your luck in his experiment. Mark divided the exam into 2 parts. In the first, participants predicted whether a sequence of coin tosses would land heads or tails. Mark had cat trainers lead a black cat in front of the competitors before the second round. The participants' ability to correctly predict heads or tails, however, was unaffected by the cat and neither improved nor deteriorated. So much for being scared of black cats. What about full moons, though? It has long been believed in the medical community that a full moon increases the likelihood of patients being admitted to the emergency room. Well, U.S. researchers investigated this assertion by reviewing a full year's worth of trauma center records and matching them to the moon cycle. However, they didn't discover a rise to support the superstition. So, there is no need to worry about the upcoming full moon. In reality, there is a lengthy tradition of people disproving beliefs like these. William Fowler, a military veteran, founded the 13 Club in New York City in the 1880s. He would invite visitors to a meal on the 13th day of the month when attendees would try every conceivable superstition, including opening umbrellas indoors, spilling salt on tables, and crossing forks. Naturally, no ill fortune was reported by the guests as a result. But why do these myths still exist when many of them have already been debunked? We'll examine the science underlying our complicated connection with the truth in the following chapter. Research demonstrates that lying may be done effortlessly, but there is a trick to spotting deception. Did you find magicians fascinating as a child? Perhaps viewing a card trick or a disappearing performance still fills you with awe. As long as you recognize magicians for what they are, which is skilled liars, this is great. Contrary to what respondents to a survey the author conducted claimed, lying is a universal human behavior. Just 8% of the respondents said they had ever lied in the past. And it's likely that some of those 8% were lying to themselves. In a follow-up study, the author instructed these same subjects to record each lie they uttered in a journal. The findings revealed that adults, on average, told at least 2 notable lies per day. And it should come as no surprise that some people lie better than others. Here's how to determine if your personality type makes you more likely to be a good liar. Without thinking, visualize a capital Q being drawn on your forehead. You are what is referred to be a high self-monitor if, in your mind, you drew the Q with the tail pointing toward your left eye, making it simpler for other people to read. Such individuals tend to be better liars because they are well aware of the impact they make on others. Nevertheless, the majority of individuals aren't very adept at spotting lies to begin with. In a further experiment, the author asked participants to determine if an actor had been dishonest when he claimed he favored the movies Gone with the Wind and Some Like It Hot. They failed to succeed. Nonetheless, this experiment demonstrated that there are cues that indicate in the right direction. For instance, the actor went into greater detail and length when discussing the film that he really enjoyed. Your concerns may be validated if someone is silent and evasive about a matter. As a result, we find it simpler to tell the truth than to lie. Nonetheless, it happens frequently that our actions are purely unreasonable. Contrary to what we believe, humans are not nearly as rational. Have you ever done anything and wondered, what was I thinking, afterward? Perhaps you indulged in an imprudent shopping binge or got into a pointless quarrel. Is there a rational scientific justification for these errors? Context-based decision-making can lead to some fairly crazy behavior. In one study, participants were instructed to choose between 2 scenarios. In the first, participants were instructed to envision going to a store to acquire a 20-pound calculator but learning just before they make the purchase that the calculator will be on sale the next day for only £5. In the second scenario, students were instructed to picture paying £999 for a computer and finding out the following day that it will be discounted to £984. The price difference is the same in both cases, £15. Yet, 70% of participants said they would hold off on purchasing the computer in favor of the calculator until the sale. People, irrationally, only consider a save of £15 to be significant when contrasted to the total cost. Yet being irrational doesn't just apply to purchasing, it also occurs when we meet new people. It turns out that a person's name can trigger unreasonable responses for the rest of their lives. Studies have demonstrated, for instance, that teachers judge students' work more highly if they have a well-known name, such as David, as compared to a less well-known name, such as Hubert. In colleges, it's not uncommon for students with uncommon names to experience social isolation. Even in the 1960s, psychologists found that those with uncommon names had a higher prevalence of psychological disorders than those with more typical names. Nonetheless, it has been discovered that persons with unusual names have a higher possibility of becoming famous for those who can get past the irrational reactions. After all, someone with the name Joe Smith is much less memorable than someone with the name Benedict Cumberbatch. And gaining notoriety requires being memorable. Science provides some fascinating insights on human selfishness and generosity. Have you ever been stuck on the side of the road with a broken-down vehicle, hoping that someone would come to your aid? Perhaps you wondered, how would I respond to a stranger in need of help, after the encounter? In a 1930s study, psychologist Richard Lapierre sought to understand the origins of these ideas. Lapierre visited 184 eateries and 66 hotels while touring the country with a young Chinese couple. They received polite and respectful treatment everywhere they went. Lapierre's assistant submitted questionnaires to each of the companies in the second phase of his research, asking them if they would welcome Chinese clients. Surprisingly, no was the answer from over 90%. The majority of the remaining 10% of respondents said they were unclear of how they would react, and only one lady said she would welcome the clients. It turned out that she had recently enjoyed the company of a pleasant professor and a young Chinese couple. It turns out that people are frequently kinder than they anticipate. This is due to the fact that until we are fully aware of a situation, it is very hard to foresee how we will act. Another experiment was done by the author to study selfish behavior. When the unknowing volunteers had made their purchases, the cashier at a huge corporate store was instructed to give them too much change. While it would be unethical and selfish to keep the extra money, the majority of individuals did. Several even grinned broadly as they left. The identical experiment was then carried out by the author in a small, independent neighborhood store. But, in this case, the clients reacted differently and returned the money. Customers felt bad about defrauding the tiny shop's cashier because they could relate to him and felt bad about it. The impact of our favorite jokes can be quite harmful. Have you heard the world's funniest joke? No one who is still alive today has. In a classic Monty Python comedy, the military employed it to make the enemy laugh themselves to death. Okay, but what would be the funniest joke if there really was one? The author found that many people appreciate jokes that make them feel superior throughout his search for the greatest joke ever spoken. As a result of his investigation, the author developed Laugh Lab, a website where users could submit their own jokes and evaluate those submitted by others. The findings were unmistakable: the jokes that made us feel superior by enabling us to laugh at the stupid actions of others received the highest ratings. And while not quite as bad as those in the Monty Python skit, these superiority jokes can have extremely bad repercussions. These puns frequently rely on stereotypes. Gregory Mayo, a psychologist, studied the impact of these jokes on persons who are made fun of in Canada in 1997. He divided the audience into two groups, one of which was given jokes that were generic and not targeted at any particular demographic, while the other was given jokes that made fun of Newfoundlanders. The two groups were then questioned regarding how they felt about other people, including Newfoundlanders. The findings revealed that those in the group who had read the jokes about Newfoundlanders felt far more negatively about them than those in the group who hadn't. The trust of the individuals targeted by these jokes may also be harmed. Another experiment involved testing the intellect of two groups of blonde women. One group received jokes before the test that mocked blonde women's IQ. It goes without saying that this group performed worse on the test than the group who did not hear the jokes. Therefore, before you decide to distribute another superiority joke, stop and consider. They are not only damaging, but they also incite bigotry. The main idea of this work is: don't take anything you hear at face value. Several myths, like astrology and superstitions concerning bad luck, turn out to be completely unrelated to our daily lives. But, some factors, such as your last name or a joke, can have an unexpectedly large impact on your life and the thoughts you have about yourself. Practical suggestions. Believing in superstitions. On the 13th day of the month, throw a party with 12 people and engage in all the unlucky rituals you've been cautioned about. Who knows, challenging superstitions might well make you live longer like the fabled 13 club members.